Good evening and welcome to February's Power BI Manchester User Group. My name is Alex and we're in for a treat this evening. Tonight we've got two speakers, one from Rotterdam in Henk Vlootman and one from Greater Manchester in Dave Scally. So let me do a quick intro and then we'll begin with tonight's talks. If you haven't been to our events before, my name is Alex Taylor. I run the Manchester Power BI User Group. It's been going now for 4 and a bit years. We've now had over 50 events, 40 in person and 10 webinars. And it's the largest user group outside of London, attracting over 2,700 members on Meetup and 7,000 followers on LinkedIn. As I said, prior to COVID-19, we had monthly meetups. I know that Domino's are keen to get me back because they are pestering me for more orders. I'll be keen to see you guys when we are got the vaccine and we're allowed to have events later this year. So these events are great to network, and I said it's a chance for people who use Power BI to network and talk through user stories and success stories like Dave will be referring to with regards to MAG later this evening. As I said, here's a few testimonials we've had previously. It's obviously highly recommended, and a little bit like me. I'm a data analytics recruiter, long in the tooth, 16 years experience. So if you are looking to hire someone for your team, whether it be data analytics, BI, data science, advanced analytics, do drop me a call or an email. My number's there. Or if you're looking for a new job, please also get in touch. So we recruit for contract, perm and fixed term roles across the UK and further afield. This evening we have got Henk Vlootman, as I said before, with advanced visualizations in Power BI, how to get the most out of your canvas. And then at 6:25 we will have Dave with his Manchester Airport Group Power BI case study. We'll be wrapping up about 7:15, and I said if you have to drop out of the session and watch it back, it will be available on demand on the link you're watching now or on the user group YouTube page. A little bit of information in regards to Henk. Henk is a Power BI Excel business consultant and trainer. He's an MVP. He was an MVP. He founded a company called Quanto, which is an analytics Power BI company, and he also speaks at user groups up and down the Holland, but also in Europe. He has authored a number of Power BI and Power Pivot books, which are available on Amazon, and I'm sure he'll reference those during his talk. And Dave is the Performance Insight Senior Analyst and Lead at Manchester Airport Group. He managed a team of over 300 aviation security officers, ensuring security operations complied to strict CAA and international regulations. And they said last year they got heavily involved with Power BI, thanks to the help of Ben Howard training them. And Dave will be talking through how Power BI has benefited them during the last 12 months. Without further ado, I'll pass you over to Henk. Good evening, Henk.
Good evening. Thank you for your kind introduction.
You're welcome. As I said prior to going live, last time we spoke was back in 2018 at home when yourself and Askia Gunnarsson presented. It was a much different time back then, and we had about 60 or so people that you presented to in Manchester.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll get you back to do another session soon in person.
Yes, that would be very nice. I do love Manchester, and I do love to do presentations on site. So I'll be glad to be there when times come.
Cool. Are you ready to start sharing your desktop?
I think I'll start sharing my desktop with you, and then I'll just start my presentation. Yes, here we go.
So good luck, and I'll catch up with you later.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm doing something about visualizations and navigation techniques in Power BI, and just a small introduction of what has been passed. So I don't want to show you much about this, and we don't have much time to stay over here. What we're going to do is talk about visualization, and what we start with, and we always start with, is looking at business intelligence, and not only business intelligence in Power BI, but business intelligence in its normal way. We have a 5-layer model, and if you look at the model, it's for us the way of how to talk about Power BI. If you look at the bottom one, we're connecting to data. The next one is if you get your data, you need to have them inside your model, and it's not always like you want to have it. So you use Power Query to clean it. And if you are working from a database, you can of course do your cleaning as well, your ETL as well in a database. But in Power BI Desktop, you have enough options to cleanse and get your data in the way you want to have it. The next level is Analyze. That's where you create your calculations. That's where you make the relations between tables. The main difference between the second layer, Prepare, is that you're always working in Power Query on one table. And it's basically the same if you do something like ETL in a database. You're writing a SQL statement for to get one table and use that table. And in the Analyze way, that's where you combine things and make relations and do other stuff with it. So we're talking this evening about visualization, and that's the next level. And the last part is, where do I share my things? For us, this is a handsome way of talking about Power BI and talking about what we are going to do. If we're talking about visualizations, the most important part of visualizations is that you need to realize that the visualizations brings back some interaction. And I'm coming from the actual world. I used to be an Excel guy, and there I had a canvas where it was about 512 columns, and I had 1 million rows, and I can do everything over there. But if you look at Power BI itself, your canvas is not much bigger than your screen, and if you use a phone layout, it's even smaller. So you need to be very careful about what are you going to show and how do you show it. And that's the subject of today. What are we going to how do we show our information to customers? And mainly this evening, I'm going to talk to you about Drillthroughs and how Drillthroughs work in a model. So let's start with a little demo, and what are we visualizing and what are we want to show you. Here we go. I'll start with let's say something I've put on our website. It's just a report, and this is what I'm going to show you. Here we are. It's just a sales overview. It's not much interesting in how the DAX works. More or less what's happening over here is how I'm going to look at my views. As you can see, it's just one visible page we're in over here. And the only thing I have here is a couple of insights. So we use something like a year, so I can change years. And then you can see that years are going to change. And if you look at my sales on the right, and I change my time period by period, then you can see that this one will change to whatever I need to see over here. So this is basically all about sales. This is my sales last year, my sales cost and my gross margin. And this is another way of presenting it. And as you can see over here, I got a couple of graphics, and they got some what we call a custom tooltip. So if you can see over here, if I hover over it, I just got my custom tooltip, and it's the same over here. It's not all about custom tooltips today, but there is one which I'm going to show you, and that has to do with the down drilling. Before we do that, if I can just click on one of those bars, you can see that I select America 3, and as you know, all the surrounding visualizations will adjust to that selection. And I can also view, in this case, just another sheet, another page, where you can see all my team details. Don't worry about all the details over here, pay levels and dates of birth and that kind of thing, because this is dummy dates, and they're not real dates. So I'm able to show you this. We use it most of the time if you do something like security in Power BI, and then you can hide these columns if there is a role which says you're not allowed to see it. So that's why those are over here. But mainly it's just a few, and as you can see, it looks completely the same. I can still change years over here, and I can still change years to date, things like that. So I'm always able to do a visualization, and this is on a team base. If I go back like this, I'll be over here. But the main thing you can do with this this visualization is you can do a drill through. And if I click my right button over here, I can do a drill through. And these are all the drill throughs I have available at this moment. So I can do it by category, I can do it by country. And the moment I'll do a down drill over here, and let's say I do it by customer. No, let's do it by country. And I have United States and Canada. That's nice. And now I'm interested in, well, what's going to happen over here? Who's doing it? So let's see if I can do something by employee. Here are my employees. And now maybe I'm interested in what am I going to do by, for instance, customer. So those are all kinds of customers. And what I did was do a drill through, and I went down and down and down. So what am I at this moment looking at? I really don't know, because I did some drill throughs. So one of the things we did was just create something like what I'm looking at. And this is just a custom tooltip. And as you can see, I have selected my Teams America 3. My employees is Williams Apple-Line. The countries which are there are 82 in total. So I don't show the only 10 parts. And my customers are all there down, and you can see there are 251 in total. So with this kind of information, I'm able to change every filter setting I like. So go back a little bit over here, and I take Canada, and I do a drill through in Canada by employee. Now I got other employees, and let's say that I want Gretel Harris, and I want to show her by city. Then those are the cities that are, and if I look now at it, you can see that I got Gretel Harris, and I got other cities, and I got other customers. Now it's 84 in total. So depending on what I'm looking down, this gives me the information what I'm doing. And what I like to do with you today in this day is look at this model and try to let you know how we created this one, what we did in it. Questions, just do the Q&A, and then we'll come back to it. So looking at this is what we are aiming to. I need to have one button that goes back to the first one, this one. I need to create that one. That would be nice. So looking at this, every down drill I have over here is a separate page. And with that page in mind, let's go a little bit further on what's behind the thoughts about it. And then let's see in Power BI desktop what we did to create this view. Right. Let's go back to where we were in our presentation. And as far as I know, this one here we were. Let's go a little bit further. The next one. Okay. So as you can see, there are ways to have interactions within the visual, and that's the drill up and the drill down. This is just merely dragging and drop the correct column in your axis, and you are able to go up and down. This is not always available, depends on the visualization type. Map zooms and playing X are not that easy on having a drill up or a drill down. But most of the time you can use that drill up or the drill down to give your viewers more information. And we have that in our visualization show a little bit later. I will show you how that will work. And the other thing you have is that there is always interaction between visuals. So if you click on one bar or you click on a number in a table, it doesn't matter. All other visualizations in that page will be filtered based on the action you take with that. This is the basics of how do I work with my visualizations. There are also interactions between pages. You have seen that. That's a drill through. And a report page tooltip is also an interaction between two pages because your tooltip lives on another page. And you have something which is called slicer synchronization. If you have slicers, then it will be synchronized if you want to. It's not required. You can change your slicer synchronization with it, but it has some consequences if you do the drill throughs. Now, let's talk a little bit about filters. One of the things which is nice in Power BI is that we use something which is called DAX. And DAX stands for Dynamic Analytics Expression. And if you use a DAX in a measure, then the dynamics will come through it. Basically, it's not always the same, but basically a measure produces one number, one result. And the moment you're going to filter it, the results will be calculated accordingly to the filters you have. So if you look in the axis of your visualization, that's a filter. And the height of the bars will be calculated by the information he gets from the tables accordingly to the axis information at the bottom. And if you use a slicer, it will also changes your views. So the main part of this thing is that visuals in a report act in the query context of DAX calculations and calculate every time you use the slicer or you click on a bar, it will be recalculated everything. And one of the amazing things of Power BI, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is the fact that it is brilliant fast in it. If you have something like a table with a couple of million rows and you build a good Power BI model, it's amazingly fast how those new information is recalculated if you press one of the slicers, for instance, or a bar. The recalculation is really bloody fast. Right. So, what's in the filter? Be aware that this is a little bit of an of what what I said before. You got explicit filters in a filter pane, and that's why I'm not that fond of a filter pane, because you can filter something in the way you want, but it's not that intuitive as a slicer, in my opinion. And a slicer is just direct. If I click it, and that's the value I have, and I can influence the slicer in the way I want, single select or not. And with the filters in there, it's a bit harder to do it, but it's the way you want to look to it. Mostly a filter affects one column in the model, not more than one column, and it should always be a column that comes from a dimension table or a filtering table, not from your fact table. Filters should always be on a dimension table. And that's not for this evening, it's more best practice, but it has a little bit to do in how relations works in Power BI. If you want to know more about it, you can just ask in the Q&A, and maybe if there's time left, I will discuss that gladly, and otherwise it will be another moment we'll look at it. So, one of the things that you need to know is how to detect filters. And you can see, as you can see, you can view it through the funnel icon, and then you find in your visualization which are. But it's not complete. Be very, very careful, because there can be more than one filter on the column at once, and then you don't see it. You know, you can see there is a filter here on the time period, there's a filter on year. You can see there's another filter on year, but the filters you put in the axis will not be shown over here, because those are indeed filters. So we prefer, if you look at filters, to do something with DEX filters, which detects the way you have filtering. Is filtered, has one filtered, in scope is one of them, but you can also have has one value, and is cross filtered, are all kinds of DAX functions which enable to find out which filter is set on a column and how its behavior is. One of the funniest thing in life is that since the filter will always recalculate your measure, and if you don't know if there is a filter on it and which filter is on it, it's very hard to find the correct thing you want to see. So we prefer to look in DEX to get information about is something filtered or not. And a bit later, if you go to the model itself, you will find that we use is cross filtered, for instance, to find out whether there is a drill through or not. Okay, this is a little bit later. So this is one slide which is quickly passed. I would like to go to the let's say the model itself. So I'll go a little bit faster down it. Just read it for yourself. If there are any questions, please let me know. But it's this way of interactivity and filters. And I think you should know what it all is. If not, most of those will come back in the model itself. Drill through. That's more what we're talking about. We got a couple of drill throughs. What you normally have is a drill through to one page. And what you saw in, let's say, just before in the model is that we have a multi-drill through, and then you drill through and you use another drill through and you use another drill through to get to one place. And if it's a filter, if you do a drill through, you need to start with a filter in a visual. The drill through always starts from one visual, and it gives you back exactly one value. If you have that one value and you do the drill through, normally it will apply that filter to the drill through place. And one of the things you must keep in mind, if you look at the place where your filters are kept on the visualization, there's an option of keep all filters. And keep all filters on is what you need to have if you want a multi-drill through. Because the moment you have a multi-drill through and your keep all filters is on, that means the filtering you take with you will be taken with you to the next drill through, and that will be taken to the next drill through. So in that case, keep in mind that keep all filters options should be on if you do a multi drill through. Okay, this is what I just said. It should be on. One of the things you can do is use a column in a drill through filter and then just put it over there and then say something like, what do I want with this column? Will it be summarized or will it be summed or something? We call this an implicit DEX measure because it then creates somewhere in the back a DEX formula for you. Let me find it bad practice. If you want to do that, you can better write your own DEX, because then you have your calculation in your own hand. And now you leave your calculations to Power BI, and we are not fond of that. Basically, if you write a DAX, and it's a basic DAX for something like sum and column or something like that, you can reuse that DAX in other DAX functions. And if it's an implicit, you cannot. And then you have to rewrite it yourself. And then you've got two measures which are exactly the same, one implicit and one written, explicit. And that's I think not good for your model. But that's more or less how you work in Power BI. Okay. You can have something like a slices syncing. There is a way of getting your slices synced. Well, it copies visible or hidden your slicers, and it keeps them basically in sync, but not because you are able to use, let's say, the little double arrow and say, well, don't sync it, which is sometimes easy. Most of the time you like to have a sync, because if you change a slicer setting on one page and you go back to another page, you want that your selection will be taken with it accordingly. So most of the time you keep them in sync. Right. Now, okay, yes. What we like to have, if we talk about it just a little bit back, if you go over here and you see keep all filters over here, there is one problem with it. If you use a slicer and a drill through, it will keep all the filters. Now, if you have on the other page and the slicer, so you switch to another page and there is the slicer over there, which is the same as the slicer on your starting page, well, they're both identical. So what do you want to choose there? Because it takes your filter setting with them. So say you have a slicer and you select 2021. And you go to the other page, and then you find another slice which says, okay, on slicer, which says it's also 2021. But if you want to change that one, it will not work, because there is already a filter on that year, which comes back with keep filters on. So one of the things we like to have in Power BI, but it's not still there, is something like keep all filters, except from the synced slicers. In your down, in your drill through, you will take all the filters with you. So if there's a slicer on that filter, you cannot change it. There's no way of getting that slicer on, because it's already filtered from the data. I hope you can understand a little bit of the problem over here. So one of the best practices you can do is don't use a slicer on drill through. Easy like that. Right. I think we'll start a little bit in Power BI Desktop. Let's do a little bit in Power BI Desktop. So if I'm going over here and you see now my Power BI Desktop, we like to work in Power BI Desktop. As you can see, these are the basic things, and behind you find all kinds of hidden pages. So if you want to hide a page, it's just a matter of right-clicking and hide pages. And all those pages are available, but as you saw in the demo on in the cloud, all those pages are indeed hidden. But if I make a drill through and go by, for instance, pay level, then you can see that my page paid level, which is at this moment not in the view, because it's a bit more over there. So I need to do something like this. You see, I switch to the page sales by pay level. And if I use another drill through, for instance, by city, now let's say by country, because country is over here, then I switch to that page. So if you were looking closely at the drill throughs within the cloud version, just you started at the first page. Let's see if I can get to the first page over here. This is the first page. And then you saw the name behind it, sales overview. But the moment you do a drill through and you go to a page which is a hidden page, the page will be shown, but the name of your page is hidden. You don't see the name of the page. So in this case, it's built up on one overview and a couple of tooltips. I got a sales tooltip, I got a sales team tooltip, I got a filter tooltip, I got team details, which is the page I get if I do this one, click one of this and use this button to go to that, and then I'm on my team details. So within that, it's fairly easy to navigate. If you wonder what's happening over this one, with this one of the new features, but it's already a little bit older, is that I can use, in this case, a button and get on that button over here. If I have selected it, I select it over here, and I go to my button, and I'm able to get on my button title. I think, was it over here? It wasn't over here. It's always a little bit of looking for it. I have the action, of course. I got an action on it, and the action is that I do a drill through, and my destination is the sheet team details. So you're able to do an action on a button. And we use that over here. And the only thing you do over here is that it has also something that at the moment you don't select any bar in your filter. This one will be disabled because there's no way to do a drill through, and then it says view details, and the moment I select something over here, then I got what is my selection over here and how do I get there. And that means that on this button there is a DEX which will display this title. We will look a little bit later, we will look through this kind of stuff. So if I select something like this and I'm looking over here, you can see keep all filters is on over here. This means that all the filtering I'm doing will be taken with it. And the moment I start down drilling and I do a drill through to, for instance, my customer type, and I go to my customer type over here, you see that keep all filters is grayed out. It's still on, so I cannot change it over here. And in all my drill through pages, I'm not able to change this keep all filter setting. That means that whatever I do within this, within those drill through pages, it's always good. It will always get all my filters with it. So looking at this is a bit more time to explain how things work with the drill through. I expect you understand the basics of a drill through. It's more or less creating the page, and it's always depending on which measures do I use in my model. So if I look over here and I click on this one, for instance, and I look at my results contains all my measures, all the measures I need to have. And if I look over here, I use my sales measure, I use my cost and my gross margin, and they're not special. If I click on it, and you can see what it is. This is just a sales formula, and that sales formula changes the way you look at your sales. This is a basic one, which use, for instance, the basic sales. If I select over here my year to date, I got my year to date. And if I choose for a 12-month rolling total, it calculates it based on the dating period from my calendar, and then returns the number of months back 12. So if there's nothing selected, it's just a base sale. And that's what's happening in this one. If I use this one and I look at, then you can see that I got my sales. Those three are selected over here, and this should be the same. As you can see, this is the same. And if I use my filter over here, you can see that it now becomes year to date, and this is my 12-month rolling total. Basically, This table we created, normally we created ourselves. If I look at my tables over here and I look at my time period over here, you can see that it just happens to be this one. Oh, that's a bit big. Just create a data, and we use three things in it. This is the name of the columns we have, which is a string, which is and we have a code and we have an order. Those are hidden afterwards. And why? Well, we use the code column to calculate which of the selections has been used, and we use the order in the way that we can adjust the number of appearance, because this column is sorted on the order column. So if I change my order over here, the rows will be changed accordingly in my visualization to what I want to see. This way of creating little tables means that I can use it over here. And if you look, for instance, in this one, and I'll take my column sales, for instance, this one, what it really does is that it sums my time period code. There's the column with the 1 to 4 sums, and I use a switch. And if I say if the results from this column is 1, I need my basic sales. I'm sorry. If it's a 2, it's the total year to date, and if it's a 4, it's the 12-month period. Why don't you think we have a 3? Well, if you select, for instance, if this should be a 3, and you should select by period. I'm sorry, I need to have a little drink in the meantime. Just a little tea to get my throat running. If I select those two, then the sum of that those selections will now be 3, because this is a 1 and it's a 2, and that means if I use a 3, it will be showing my 12-month rolling total. And what I really want with this visualization over here, if I use my my sales again over here, is that the 3 is not over there. It's the 4, and the next one should be an 8, because all those selections I can make with it will not return anything. And if I have a 1 and a 2 together, the sum will be a 3. 3 means that it doesn't do anything except the else, and it will show the base sales. There are times that I not use something like the base sale, but do something like a blank over here, because if I use a blank over here, a blank like this, come on, yes, I do love my computer. Yes, blank like this, finish it like this, then it will not show anything. It shows something, but I thought I would say it was blank, and I selected those 3, so that's a bit strange. If I have 1, this is okay. This is also, oh look, it's this one. Hold on, this one. So if I don't select anything, this one is blank, doesn't have anything in it. So I prefer this one is not reacting correctly. Let's have this one. So if you have by period, it's okay, but if you have 2 together, it will be 3, and I should have 2 together over here, and it will not show anything. So it's depending on how you want to show your audience what you want to see, and I prefer to have that sales, this one, to have a blank. Why does this behave a little bit different? Depends, because this one has 3 measures in it: sales, costs, and gross margin. And the gross margin is not added in this one. So what you saw was the results of the gross margin. Right. This is just a way of handling your visualizations in it. Now let's have a little bit look on what you do if you have a drill through. And we have multiple drill through. So the moment you start with, let's say, something like this, and we do a sales by category, Drillthrough sales by category, what you then see is this one. This is just standard page, and the only thing we did is just copy it when it was finished and change the axis. This is the axis which comes to category. And it's if I go to my sales by country over here, it's exactly the same, but as you can see, my filters are coming with me. Over here, this one used the country in my axis. So in this kind of configuration, it is basically the way that you create your page as you like to have it, and then use the axis in your visualization to change what you want to see with it. Since the filters are coming with it, and I'm filtering through to, for instance, my sales by city over here, it will be the same, but here are the cities in the bottom, but all those, let's say, KPIs will be again filtered to what's going with it. So this is the sales, just the same sales, same year to date, which you saw on the first page, but then filtered on always whatever you pass through your drill through. So building this is building all those pages is not quite difficult. You can just do it. I think I'm a little bit halfway. Alex, are there questions at the moment or not?
No, we're good on questions. I've answered them as we've gone along, Henk. So take a sip of water and away you go.
Let's do that. Just a sip through.
And talk us through some of your beers behind you there, Henk. You've got a good selection that's been commented on as well.
Thank you. Let's do that afterwards. Right. So let's see what's happening over here now. What's going on over here? Let's just have a drill through and do it by employee at this time. This is my employee, and having something like drill through to my retail type, something like this. So I did do 2 drill throughs, and the question is what I'm looking at. So how do I get this one? It might be obvious, but this is something like a custom tooltip. Nothing else than a custom tooltip. And a custom tooltip should be easy, but most of the time a custom tooltip is based on a visualization you have. So if you have a visualization and you get a custom tooltip like this on it, it will be always filtered to what your bars are. As you can see, it changes the information within the visualization changes by moving over your bars from your axis. And it shouldn't do that. If this is a line, it should also be doing it. So that's one of the things. How did we get this button? Because you think, how do I get a custom tooltip on a button? Well, it has also to do that this is not a button. If I look at it and I click on it, this is, as you can see over here, a tree map. So it is a visualization, but we didn't put anything in it. We just didn't put anything in it. What we did is that we put it on the filter tooltips page. So we have a filter tooltip, and we'll go look a little bit later to that. And the only thing which we did was getting a basic measure in it, and we call it a filter base, and that's it. We don't use anything in details nor anything in group, and that means that there's just only one block left, and we just regrouped it a little bit. We just drag a little bit on the corners to make it nice. And what should be the basic filter? So this is this measure. And the only thing it says, well, my filter base is just one, nothing more. It's not a calculation, it's just one number. And since it's one number, it will not be divided by anything. And I can use this visualization for getting my custom tooltip. As you can see, this is my filter tooltip. So here, it will be made. And as you can see, at this moment, since I'm not filtering anything, everything says all. And this is nothing else than just, if I click on it, you can see it. This is just nothing else than a normal matrix. And it's the same over here. It's also a matrix. So all the elements, this can be a card, and this should also be a card. And it will be calculated by DAX. So let's have a look at some of the DAXs which are in here. So if I take this one, you can see we have our filter DAXs over here. And let's see, we have divisions over here. What is this one saying? This one. So now this is the DAX we're talking about. And let's have a little bit dive in what's going on over here. Basically, we have three possible solutions, calculations for every filter we have. So we have divisions, teams, employees, and we're now looking at the divisions. And first thing we want to know, is there a filter on it? The second thing, if there is a filter on it, then we want to know how much space we want to use for it. So basically we say if it's more than 10 items returned from that filter, we say we will mention the first 10, and we will mention the number total. And the third one is that it's less than 10. And then we want to see all those which are in that division. So let's look a little bit closer to this DAX. For those who doesn't know it, we use a switch over here. A switch is a DAX, which is something like the same as a do case in Visual Basic. And it just starts to evaluate every argument in it, and the moment it returns a true, it will be executed the element which is behind it and stop. And if it returns a false, it will go to the next argument, execute that, true or false, do what's behind it or go to the next one. And the last one is an else. If nothing is getting true, the else will be executed as being true, and then it will be that what's in it. In this case, we have three sections, and let's start with the first one. Is not cross-filtered. That means that we are looking for the column MPD division, and we're looking whether it is cross-filtered. I could say not is filtered, but is filtered, it means that it should have a direct filter on it. That means something like a slicer or something in the visual. But here it is that I take my filters with it, and if I'm a little bit further away, I could have a filter that is not directly placed on it. So you use cross filter to find out whether there is a filter on the column employee division. If it's not cross, and we use the not for it to turn it around. So if there's not a filter on it, you say it's all divisions because there's no filter on it. The next one is a bit more interesting because you do a count rows, because you are now counting the rows in your employee table. And what we use with that is a distinct in order to find out how much unique cases there are. You might have, if you're looking at yes, for instance, there are 365 or 366 rows going to one specific year. And if you don't use the distinct, all the numbers will be added, and that's not what you're looking for. You're just looking for that name, so you use a distinct. And if it's more than 10, then we say, okay, do a concatenate x, and you know the x function is a function that is able to see more information on your table than just the one column. And in this case, we use the x in order to create a new table, a top 10, which is, for instance, just let's say a table in memory, which has the 10 numbers of the employee division. And we will use again the distinct to have them uniquely, not the same 10 persons. And we want to have the order of ascending, which is just fine with us. And then, as you can see, we want to add here the count rows distinct again. How much are there in total? And then we paste that behind the 10 persons. So let's find out if we can look at this one a little bit further. And the last DAX we use here is just, well, if it's less than 10, because this one is above 10, if it's less or equal 10, that's the last one, then you show all the employees there are in a distinct way. And the concatenate X take care that there is just that they are all behind each other. You can see you use the comma with a space to get it nicely lined up behind each other. So let's see if we can go back to our sales overview over here, and let's do something like, let's filter a little bit and then drill through over here, and we do it by employee, and we do it by retail type, and we do it by, let's say, city. Now, if I'm going to what am I looking at now, then you can see that the employees is just one, and it returns the only one. And the customers, they are less than 10, so you can see they are at that moment less than 10. I try to find the other one. As you can see over here, countries are not filtered yet. We started at the teams America 3 from the division America, so those are all same. Let's go backwards now and see if we can find something which is a bit more exciting. If we find something like we do a drill through by product, this one, and we do something like at the moment here. As you can see now, if you look at cities now, you can see that there are 250 in total. I'm talking about the cities, yes, and that there are, for instance, for the customers, there are 2,949 in total. And if I add this one and I go a little bit further over here, and I'll drill through to, for instance, my employees over here, and I take my employees, it will be recalculated again. And then you can see that also my employees now are selected, and those are less than 10, so I don't have another total with it. Let's look at the time. It's I'm 55 minutes away, so time for questions at this moment.
Henk, the only question which really came through was, it all looks quite sophisticated and quite high level. What would be your tips perhaps for getting started with DAX and with these tooltips?
To be very honest, what you need to do if you want to start with this is start with finding out what context of your DAX calculations are. And
Yeah.
that is another subject then over here. But basically, what you want to know with this kind of things is what's going to happen with my visualization if I use a DAX. And there are, we distinguish a couple of contexts. This one, the first one is a query context. This is that is in which is a visualization affected by my filters. There is a filter context. So if you do something like a calculation, calculate, and you set something like a filter on it, then you filter it in a DAX itself, and that creates another way of how things are calculated. And we use something like table functions. We use solver concatenate x, which is a table function, and which returns tables. And if you know the difference between those DAX parts, then you're able to dive deep into DAX to get everything out of it. The main problem over here is that if you come from a background from Excel, you have learned to look at data in a calculated way.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think
if you look at DAX, it's filtered ways.
Yeah, and I think this is the main stumbling block, or the main issue of looking at Power BI just from an Excel perspective. It's not what I would call the natural, not a natural progression, simply because, you know, DAX is, as you say, complex, sophisticated. It's easy to take in a CSV file, do it all the time, and visualize it. But as soon as you start filtering, filter context, when you start talking about row context and context transition, etc., it's a multi-year journey just to begin to understand that stuff. So I guess the tip is just read widely, watch lots of YouTube videos, start slowly, and understand the basics before you move on. All right, that was brilliant.
May I add a little bit on that? Ben. It's also
go for it, Henk.
Very important to do trainings on this subject, because most of the time, if you look at YouTube videos, they are talking about the DAX itself. What does it do? What can I do with it? And talking about context is not. If I talk about context, I need to have 2 hours, 3 hours, and that's something I can do in let's say training, but I cannot do that in just one hour of maybe a couple of minutes in a YouTube video. So it's also a matter of getting trainings and getting used to what you're doing with it. And to be very, very honest, if you come from the other side, if you come from databases, then you have another problem. Then you're used to working with relations and tables, but a relation in Power BI is completely different than a relation in relational database, as for instance SQL.
Yeah.
And that's another point. All right. Are there any other things?
No, that is us, I think. Okay. Just for one last question, if we can, quickly, because otherwise we'll eat into Dave's time. I've just published it. It says Henk had a filter where if more than one item was selected, it displayed blank. Could he change the settings so the user could not select more than one, brackets, multi-select turned off, question mark.
Yes, in the multi-selection in the way of what? Is the multi-selection in a slicer, or doesn't it say?
Well, I tell you what, it doesn't say. So, John, if you reply to that, it's a published question. Henk will reply to you in the, he'll have a little chat to you in the Q&A. Whilst we bring on Mr. Dave Scally. So Henk, thank you very much for that.
Yes, I'll move myself.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
I'm gonna wave bye-bye to you, and you can, as soon as you're off screen, you can go and open one of those bottles behind you.